Welcome to the Call Your Shot podcast, your weekly sports recap podcast where we break down the hottest headlines, dissect the latest injuries, and serve up our own hard-hitting analysis of the past week in sports. But that's not all. We're not just here to talk about the past, we're here to predict the future as well. On the Call Your Shot podcast, we boldly predict the outcomes of the upcoming week's games.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for listening. This is the Call You Shot podcast with your hosts, Alex Harris and Drew Moore. Today's episode, we're going to cover some of the final free agent signings and trades that happen within the NFL, but not get too much into it, as we're going to cover a lot of that stuff in more depth as we get closer to the NFL draft. We're going to talk about the NBA as we are getting closer to the in-season tournament and the playoffs. And then lastly, finishing off talking about March Madness and the NCAA tournament, which is pretty much starting today and tomorrow. So, Drew, anything that you wanted to cover first within the NFL?
No, I mean, the main thing would just be Justin Fields going to the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I think it's absolutely hilarious that they thought that they were going to get a first round pick or like a second round pick for this guy, and no, he's not worth that much. And at the end of the day, did they wait too long to get rid of him to try and see if they can get more value? Probably, if we're being quite honest, because at this point, all of the major positions were already filled. And so nobody's going to pay a first or second round for a backup quarterback, essentially. And so he goes to the Steelers, and I think it's kind of funny, too, because it's like Mike Tomlin will do anything he can to try and maintain that record of, never having a losing season. Whether that's going to
Never
be with
lost.
Russ. Literally, they'd be like, all right, Russ, you are cooked. So you're done with you. Justin, I've seen you win a couple games, but not that many, but I won more with less. So you got to be able to do something. And so here we are, months down the road, and Justin Fields finally getting dealed. And now it's almost a sure thing that Caleb Williams is going to go number 1 overall. So.
Yeah, we both talked about it. Definitely think that they waited too long for the potential trade. They weren't sure what exactly they wanted to do. I knew he wasn't going to go for a first or a second or anything like that, but I didn't think it would be for a 6th rounder. I feel like there's a lot of teams in the NFL that could have taken Justin Fields, who I do think is a starting quarterback in the NFL, for a 6th rounder that could turn into a 4th rounder if he plays like 51% of the games and stuff. So that is surprising. I think the Steelers, kind of made out like bandits in that regards. They don't have to pay him that much. He's on a pretty much a prove it deal, and if they want to, they can re-sign him, or if it doesn't work out with Russ, whatever the case may be, but that worked out for them. There was only 3 other major free agency signings or things of note that I thought we would need to cover. So I'll go through them rapid fire, but if you want to talk about them, let me know. We have Hollywood, who ended up signing with the Chiefs. So I think that's kind of a nice addition, who's probably going to be the best receiver that they've had since Tyreek Hill, even though the rookie did come on very strongly at the end of the season. We had Mike Williams ended up signing to the Jets after the Chargers were just like, you know what, we're getting rid of everybody. Austin Eckler bye, Keenan Allen bye, who they also traded to the Bears, and Mike Williams were just going to drop you. So he goes to the Jets. As mentioned, Keenan Allen was traded to the Bears. So now you have Caleb Williams, more than likely, as we said, potentially with a very good group of weapons in Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, and DeAndre Swift now. And as we mentioned, lastly, the Fields to the Steelers. So of all those 4, which one do you think could probably make the best or the most immediate impact for their team?
I mean, it would have to be all the moves that the Bears have done, right? So getting Keenan Allen is absolutely massive. And I think it's hilarious too that, one of the biggest things for Justin Fields was that he never really had any weapons. And like I was telling you, he was throwing to a bunch of like sub 6 foot players, and anybody that calls himself 6 foot is not actually 6 foot. So DJ Moore, not actually 6 foot, maybe 5'10" on a good day. But moral of the story is now. Okay. Moral of the story is now he's getting these weapons, Caleb Williams is going to be getting all these weapons to be utilized in the offense, and they're going to be so much more dynamic. And I mean, shout out to Ryan Poles. Like, dude is playing chess, not checkers out here, and he's just making the NFL look easy in terms of GM. Granted, still got to be able to do something with that talent, but all the moves that he's made make it look like he's knows exactly what he's doing, and it's a process, but at the same time, he's doing all the right things right now. So
which is so annoying. I feel like if I was Justin Fields. So now I'm a backup to Russell Wilson in Pittsburgh, and Caleb Williams is out here with all of these new toys and weapons that I never got to play with, and
mhm.
the Bears are probably going to be much. I mean, I don't think they're going to be like a playoff team or anything like that, but I think they're going to be better than last year because I don't think that's hard to do, hard to be. And yeah, so Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, DeAndre Swift. You still have Cole Kmet. Anything that they do in the draft. So I think that is a pretty good receiving core and way better than anything, or weapons overall, way better than anything Justin Fields had during his time in Chicago. So anything else that you wanted to cover in the NFL?
No, it's pretty much everything. Yeah.
Moving on to the NBA, we only have probably about 5 to 7 games, depending on which team you are, left before the in-season tournament and then the playoffs start. Right now, the main thing going on is the in-season tournament or the play-in happening, or not in-season tournament, the play-in happening in the Western Conference. As right now it's Dallas, Phoenix, Lakers, and Golden State, which I feel like would be the most entertaining play-in tournament in history. But what were your thoughts on those teams, and which of those 4 teams do you think would be able to go the furthest in the playoffs if they were able to make it out the play-in?
That's tough because I
No,
mean,
it's not.
okay, I mean, like at the beginning of the season, I was super high on the Suns, right? And I was, calling my shot. I was like, they're gonna win the West. Like they're just gonna come out the West. And,
Yep.
I mean, injuries happen, and that was the big thing with this team, I know, and it did ultimately end up coming to fruition, and here we are. This is the new reality, and this is what we all expected. I thought that there would be some change, and there wasn't. But that being said, I do believe that when they're all together, they are still one of the more dominant teams in the league. As opposed to the Mavericks, they don't know what they want to do. They don't know who they are. They don't have an identity. They're just like, we get buckets and occasionally hit skyhook game winners. So I think that going forward, like I think the least fugazi team out there would be the Suns. But again, that being said, they also are the second worst team at covering the spread this year, only to the Atlanta Hawks, where the Atlanta Hawks are hitting at a 30% clip. The Suns are hitting at a 33% clip. So that is ultimately the great equalizer is the spread. So great teams win, or good teams win, great teams cover. So we'll see how well that goes for them in the series.
Yeah. I think that we all agreed with the Suns that if they were fully healthy in a perfect world, that they were a juggernaut offensive team. But it's like, this is like the 3rd time now, or 2nd or 3rd time with KD. It's like, you know what? The talent's there. We're just going to assume everybody's going to be healthy and they're going to be great. And now, obviously, Devin Booker, who's dealt with injuries throughout his whole career, Bradley Beal, who's dealt with injuries throughout his whole career, and now they're all banged up and stuff, and they were sitting 5th or 6th in the West, and now they are a half a game behind the Kings, and the Mavericks are one, or they're tied basically, but the Kings have the tiebreaker. So either of those 3 teams, the Kings, the Mavs, or the Suns, could end up squeaking into that 6th spot. The Lakers and Golden State are pretty much securely in the play-in, which is unfortunate.
I didn't mention
because
them getting into the playoffs.
you notice how like they went the furthest out of any of those teams last year.
That was last year. Why are you living in the past?
Because it's the same team.
Not even
It's
Steph's
changed.
hurt. Steph has like half a leg.
No, I'm talking about the Lakers. Exactly. I'm saying the Lakers are like the same, pretty much the team as last year, and I think that they can, once they get into the playoffs, that they are able to get out of the play, and I think they can make some noise. And I don't think that I don't think that's what they did last year. I don't think any team wants to see LeBron in the playoffs.
Yeah, true.
So the Warriors,
you got Mr. Street Clothes, who's actually been playing pretty good, I'll admit. And Anthony Davis, he's been playing pretty well.
He's played so much over the past 2 years.
I know, that's what I'm saying. He's when he's actually out there, he's been good. And this year, he's actually been out there, which is why they've been doing kind of decent. But the problem is being able to hold those leads and playing a full game and not giving up those those leads because, like I told you before, those are the games that I bet on the Lakers, and those are the games that I end up losing. And it's so dumb. It's always like, oh yeah, they
Just stop
were
betting on the
up
Lakers,
by.
bro.
It's like I can't get a read on them to save my life. It's like, they're up by 35, and then they end up losing on a game winner or whatever, or they're down by 300, and then of course I have the other team, and then they end up winning, coming back because LeBron just dropped 50 in one quarter, and I'm like, dude, are you like, what is going on? Like, there's no way that
It's
all
like,
of this can always happen to me. But
yeah, that's how it is being a Lakers fan for the past 20 plus years. It's like, all the games that we're not expected to win, like when we don't have LeBron and we beat the Bucks or beat the Thunder who are fully healthy
or when you
or
beat
beat
the
who
it was the Celtics in
Timberwolves
Boston.
as well.
Well,
Yeah,
I'm
literally.
talking about the one in. I got
Oh no,
great closing
yeah.
value on that. And then they let me tell you something. They literally no LeBron, no AD, and I lost. Not just like didn't cover. I then they blow the doors off that team, and it was I can't.
Yeah, but those are the games we win. And then, like, when there's games that we absolutely need to win, like when we're on a hot streak and then we go against the Kings at home and we have a 20 plus point lead against them in like the first or second quarter, we blow that. Or when we have to go against them at their place and basically we are 6 games above 500 for the first time all season, we have an opportunity to get within the 7th spot. And then we lose that game too. So, I mean, we are who we thought they were. And
I mean,
hopefully we can get out of the play-in. That's all I'm hoping. I just want to see you got to make the playoffs, and it doesn't look good for your GOAT conversation if your man keeps playing in the play-in and can't make it out into the playoffs. I'm just saying.
what? But
The
also,
Warriors, I
I
don't have any.
mean,
I don't have any hope for the Warriors.
that's true. But like you were saying though too, with the like losing games to the Kings and the Kings winning games that they shouldn't and stuff like that, they're also like one of the most hot and cold teams and hard teams to figure out in the league. Because like if you go back and look at what they've done, they if you just go back in like chronological order here, they lost to the Knicks. Okay, whatever, they lost at home to them, but they beat the Lakers, they beat the Bucks, and then they lost to the Rockets. They beat the Spurs barely, only by 3, and or by 2. I can do math. And then they beat the Lakers at the Lakers, which is basically a home game for both of them. And then they lost to the Bulls. They beat the Timberwolves. They got blown out by the Heat and also by the Nuggets. But then they ended up beating the Clippers, and then they beat the Nuggets as well. Like, so who knows what they're gonna do? Whatever you think that's going to happen in their games, do the opposite, because they don't even know what's going to happen next, or who's going to be hot, who's going to be cold, so on and so forth. And like you said, that's your boy Sabonis. Like, he's one of the more underrated players out there in the league, and he should get some of his respect, but he usually never does. But he did record his 50th straight double the other day. So
Yeah, I think that the Kings are inconsistent at times, but like them, along with a lot of other teams, whenever they play the Lakers, they're just like, oh, wait, no, we're godlike. And I think the Kings just have our numbers. So it's kind of tough because you have D'Lo and Austin Reeves having to guard De'Aaron Fox, who's like one of the fastest players in the league, and Malik Monk, who is like literally a human microwave. So that's a tough matchup. And then for some reason, Sabonis just has 80's number. I think he's like 11-0 in the past 11 games that they played, and he's completely dominated them. And then he kind of just big bodies him every single time that they're in the paint. So something that could potentially happen, I think that would be like a second round matchup or something like that. So I don't have high hopes of that happening in the playoffs, but for whatever reason, the Kings do have the Lakers number. So what else did you want to get into in the NBA?
I mean, we could talk about the scorching hot Houston Rockets.
Yep.
Houston,
Wounded
we
Tiger.
don't have a problem anymore. Now we have a solution. All it took was them to get rid of their best player, Alpert Şengün, for them to go 8-1 in the month of March so far. And they also are third in the league when it comes to point differential in terms of offensive rating versus defensive rating. With offensive rating, they are currently third in the league in the month of March, as well as fourth in the league in terms of defense. So, I mean, you want to talk about is getting hot in H-Town. Like, get down.
Yeah, I think I don't remember exactly. You said 8-1 in March, but since Shingun's been out, I think it was either 4-0 or
Mhm.
6-0 or something like that. And Jalen Green has just been going absolutely insane. He's averaging 30 points per game, 10 rebounds, and 5 assists on 50% field goal percentage and 43% from the three since Shingun's been out. So they've been having to lean on Jalen a lot more this year and or past few games, and he's definitely stepped up. People have always thought of him as a really good scorer, but he's just been very inconsistent and inefficient at times. So if he is able to kind of dial that in more so and be that elite scoring option with Shingun, and then you have good depth and good options with Fred VanVleet and Dylan Brooks and a lot of the rookies and sophomores that they have, they could be a potential good team over the next few seasons. I don't know. I don't like Dylan Brooks and I don't like Imi Udoka, but I can accept that Dylan Brooks is better than probably most people give him credit for, and I can accept the fact that Imi Udoka is actually a very good coach. So
That's
there we
fair.
go.
That's fair. Um,
Nothing. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, go for it. It's all you.
No, that's pretty much all that has changed in the Eastern Conference. Pretty much everything's still the same. Boston is still at the top of the league. Milwaukee has had some up and down games. They've same thing with Cleveland, who's been battling through injuries as well. The Knicks have still always been solid, and the Orlando Magic are 8-2 over these past few games. They're sitting at the fifth seed. They have a potential basically to get the fourth seed, but that's probably the most likely option. I think that Paulo Banchero is a player that's very underrated and doesn't get the respect that he deserves. And people talk about, everything that Victor Wembanyama is doing and some of the stats that he's putting up. And obviously it's better than like people like want to compare him to like LeBron's rookie numbers and stuff like that. But I mean, Paulo Banchero, other than like, I guess you could say like the rebounds because he's not 7'4", or like the blocks because he's not 7'4", he's doing the same type of stuff. And he's been great this season, but nobody ever talks about the Magic because I think that people are like, okay, yeah, they're a good team or they're a solid team, but they're not going to do anything in the playoffs. So people don't give them the respect that they deserve, which I guess is fair, but they're a pretty solid team. And your 76ers, Drew, they are hanging on for dear
Well,
life for that sixth
well,
spot.
one sec. Also in that same time period there, where we were talking about Houston, we also have Orlando, who is fourth, right below Houston in that spot where they're 7-2 in the month of March so far. However, their offensive rating is 18th, where their defensive rating is second. So, and along with that too, if you want to talk about the great equalizer in the spread, they're currently 13th when it comes to the spread difference, whereas Houston is second, beating the spread by an average of 9.7 per game. So,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Yeah.
and
Talk about your
or
76ers.
well, I was gonna go into your boy Pablo Banchero. So in terms
Yo.
of okay, in terms of um, points per shot attempt on cleaning the glass, he is currently in the 24th percentile, which is not honestly all that great. But he also is, when it comes to the assist percentage, he is for his position. He is in the 96th percentile, and in terms of usage, he's obviously all the way up to the moon with that. Um, you know, he's done a great job at not only being like the main guy, but being a facilitator as well. And I mean, if you're going off every night, there's gonna be times where you're gonna get double teamed and everything too. But being able to play make out of that post position is going to be a huge thing for them. And you've seen him kind of evolve and be able to do that over time. Whereas last year, he didn't really have that in his game all that much, but he was still, getting buckets, but not as much before. So I guess, all that to say, He's he is one of the more elite players in the league, but I do still think that he needs help. The Wagner brothers are not going to be enough to help them reach
Hey,
the next
Franz is
level.
solid.
He's good. Yeah, they're good. But I think that they need another elite player on that team for them to really make some noise. Because I mean, ultimately, like the Franz brothers, like they're good and everything. They're good bigs. But I don't really like Orlando's guard play. with Suggs out there as well as Fultz. I just think that they have no scoring when it comes to the offense or the uh, front court position there. So I think that, or sorry, backcourt position. Um, so I think that Cole Anthony is not going to be the answer long term. So find somebody else that can get a bucket and maybe a microwave. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I like Cole Anthony, I like Jalen Suggs, but I don't. Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think that they're game changers or anything like that. Mo Wagner, the center, is okay. He's averaging like 11 and 5, but I like Franz Wagner. He's averaging about 20 points per game, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, 5 assists actually. But yeah, I think the Magic have a decent core talent wise, but obviously, like you said, they either need to make a splash in free agency, a big signing, or they need to continue to develop in the draft. But for a team that basically restarted from the ground up, I think that they've actually been in a pretty good position. But yeah, other than that, those are the three main teams that are basically battling for that 5th, 6th, and 7th spot. It's the Magic, it's the 76ers, and the Pacers, who ever since Tyrese Halliburton's hamstring injury, he's become a lot more. And if I don't know if it's strictly because of the hamstring injury, he's still trying to find his flow back or whatever the case may be. But they've kind of been struggling. They're 5-5 over these last 10 games, and it just hasn't been really clicking on all cylinders. So right now they're a half game back behind the 76ers, who are trying to keep their heads above water without Joel Embiid, who supposedly is making more progress. I don't know what they're going to do. I mean, personally, I don't think I would risk him coming back. I don't think that even with him that they're going to go that far in the playoffs. So for him to come back in the playoffs and potentially, have more injury and to be hampered going into next season is a risk that I wouldn't be willing to take. So thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, they like when it rains, it pours. And it's one of those things where, Philly had real high hopes until Embiid got hurt, and then all of a sudden Embiid got hurt, and ever since then it's kind of been middle of the pack. They haven't just gone like really downhill what they did initially, but it's been a slow and steady decline for them. And I just think that, like you were saying, I wouldn't rush them back. Like, you're not having any real hopes of doing anything crazy in the playoffs anyways. So why risk it? Why risk your cornerstone of your franchise for a potential to maybe make it to the second round? Like, you're not even, yeah. So, and as far as like the Pacers go and stuff, yeah, without Hallie, their offense is kind of just meh. And then you also have Ben Mathurin getting hurt as well. And so, that's another depth piece right there, the point guard position, point guard, shooting guard, whatever. And it was a good try, Indiana. But I think that ultimately they, they're still a year or two away. They have solid pieces, they have playmakers, they have decision makers, they have shot blockers, 3-point shooters, you name it, they got it. But I think that there's a lot of inconsistency on a day-to-day, game-to-game basis, to where they still, I mean, anytime that you have a defense that is just that bad, that's basically like a wet paper bag, I think that, you're not really going to do anything all that crazy. And their offense has cooled down over time, as opposed to where it was before the beginning of the season, where they were like, first or second or whatever.
Not historic anymore.
Yeah, exactly. So, just like most things in life, it all comes back to the mean. So,
fair enough. That is pretty much all I have of the NBA, other than, Victor Wembanyama. Again, give that man the Rookie of the Year trophy already. Chet, great player already. Gonna go have a good opportunity to be on the highest stage and go pretty far in the playoffs and stuff like that, while Victor Wembanyama is going to be at home. But I mean, 21, 10 rebounds, 3.5 blocks, 3.5 assists, 1.5 steals. I don't know what you want from Victor Wembanyama. Peace, baby goat.
yeah, with all those stats, that's cute and everything. But let's talk about the real Rookie of the Year here. And in a section I like to call Scoot Henderson Appreciation, where our man, Stoot Magoo, he has dropped 14, 11, 12. We'll talk about the 2-point game against Atlanta. But They won that game. That's a team player right there. Only 2 points in 17 minutes, but god damn it, they won. So that's all that really matters. They had 13, 13, 15, 14. My man has been dominating out there, really. When it comes down to it, he's also getting the boards and everything too, crashing the glass, slinging the ball around, moving it around. Last game, he had 14, 5, and 5. That's solid. Granted, it was on 4 of 17 shooting, but you can't win them all. Like the hoop is a lot smaller than you think. All right, it's a lot harder to make those shots in the NBA. But in terms of usage, he has been increasing his usage, and which is good because then he's getting some more exposure. However, this shouldn't be. This kind of is like an actual thing, but it shouldn't be this drastic where his usage is going up, but his points per shot attempt is like drastically just like not good at all.
Math isn't mathing.
Yeah. Like if you start from, we'll start from the Atlanta game on the 13th. He was in the 3rd percentile, 17th percentile, 58th percentile against the Pelicans, which is good. But then he was in the 13th percentile, and it's not ideal. But he's learning. He's still young, and he still has potential. He still has time to win that Rookie of the Year. So,
I mean, be generous and round up. He's averaging 13, 3, and 5 or something like that. So, I don't think it's bad. I think that he had his early rookie struggles, as many rookies do. Most people don't come into the league and immediately dominate because they haven't been playing in the pro league like a Victor Wembanyama or like a Luka or whatever the case may be. There's been tons of players that kind of have his similar potential that struggled their rookie season. Talk about a player that's in the MVP conversation or All NBA conversation, and Anthony Edwards, he had a terrible rookie season. Started to come on towards the end of the season, and I'm not saying that Scoot Henderson by any means is going to be close to Anthony Edwards, but I'm just saying that he has improved. He has improved. I think in the first couple months of the season, he was playing terrible, and he was shooting single digit field goal percentage or something like that. But he has been improving. Another player on your team that's also been stepping up as of late is DeAndre Ayton, Drew. Your big, franchise center, $100 million, something like that. But yeah, over the past few games, he's been averaging 24, 15, and 2. So, right now for the season, he's averaging 16 points, 11 rebounds, and 1 assist, which is about what your boy Nurkic was averaging anyway. So he's younger. There you go.
I guess.
There you go. Anything else that you wanted to cover in the NBA before we move on to March Madness?
No, that's pretty much everything.
So going on to March Madness, we are going to, obviously we can't talk about every single team or every single matchup and stuff. So the way that we decided to break this up is to talk about 2 teams that we feel were on upset alert, teams that are high rankings or expected to go further in the playoffs that we feel like have the potential to get upset early. Then we could each have a Cinderella story, a team that may not be that high ranked, but we feel like could go far in the playoffs. Then we're both going to talk about our Final Four and give our championship. And then we're going to do a similar thing for the women's as well. So Drew, what 2 teams, we can go back and forth, I guess. So which one team do you feel is on upset alert?
The first team I think is going to be on upset alert is going to be, do you want to do it? Yeah, let's do it.
Don't you dare.
Illinois.
Okay.
Illinois is going to be on upset alert for me. Going into this matchup, one of the things that again, trends don't pay the rent, but they sure do tell a damn good story, right? And one of the things to look for is those one-dimensional teams, where you have one team that is that is outside of the top 75 when it comes to either offensive rating or defensive rating. And some of those teams are Alabama, Illinois, Dayton, NC State, McNeese State, UAB, Florida, James Madison, Florida Atlantic, Kentucky. Those are the teams that fit that bill. On top of that, there's also another trend where I believe it's about 85% or so, since 2003, that teams that are one-dimensional but also have an adjusted offensive rating below 115, but then an adjusted defensive rating above 90, according to KenPom. 85% for the seeds 1 through 9, those teams often end up having an early exit, meaning that they don't make it past the second day or the first weekend, whatever you want to call it. And those teams would include Illinois, Kentucky, Florida Atlantic. So also NC State's on there, but they're not a 1 through 9 seed. So, but anyways, yeah, Illinois fits that bill. And again, trends don't pay the rent, but they sure do tell the end of the story. And I mean, just looking at this matchup too. Let me pull this up here. Where's my Ken Palm tab? So yeah, sure, Illinois, good offense, whatever, that's great. But also, if you look over at the defense of Morehead State, they're not that bad, right? I mean, you want to say like that bad, whatever, but they're also a very comparable team to where they've been able to compete with some of the best teams in their division, but also league-wide. And I had it up here, and now it's gone. Hold. There we go. Click on the wrong thing there. So, Morehead State, defensively, they have they're 121 in defense, which might not sound great, but according to Ken Palm, they also are 9th in effective field goal percentage, where Illinois seems to thrive on offense is getting good quality shots. However, Morehead State does a fantastic job at limiting those opportunities for the other team. And then if you look at Illinois' defense, they're 92nd in the league, where Morehead State, sure, they're 124, whatever, that's not good. But what they do best is chuck and duck. They shoot the three ball like none other. Whereas Illinois, they give up the three at one of the worst rates in all of the college basketball, in all of college basketball. 34%. They're 214th when it comes to 3-point percentage, as well as they get no turnovers at all. They cannot turn the ball over to save their life. They are 360th, Alex, in turnover percentage. Like they couldn't steal the
That's
ball
bad.
from my little baby cousin. It's not good. And so that and putting that into consideration as well. And then finally, sure, yeah, Illinois has got some trees over there. They're 8th in the league or 8th in college basketball in terms of height. However, when it comes to the scoring on the inside, Morehead State, I think, will be able to dominate that matchup where they score at the 21st, or they're 21st in the league in terms of 2-point percentage, whereas Illinois' defense is 36, which is good, but not great. 21 still better than 36. And then also on the defensive end, Morehead State is 16th in terms of limiting the 2-point percentage, whereas Illinois is 34th. Again, not bad, but also 16 is better than 34 last time I checked. And the majority of where Illinois likes to get their shots is going to be down low in the 2-point percentage area. And that is where they limit most of the shots on defense, is in the 2-point range area. Granted, they give up a lot of threes, like a shit ton of threes, but Illinois can't really do it. They're not really that great at it, so it doesn't really matter. So I rest my case, Your Honor.
So you don't even think it's upset alert. You genuinely think that they are going to win.
Yep.
Or
absolutely.
Going to lose.
Yeah, I have Morehead State advancing.
There you go. Well, I don't have, this is upset alert, but I don't have this team losing. I just think that it's going to be a tough matchup. My thing is Kansas versus Samford. We know that Kansas is dealing with a lot of injuries. They're dealing with injuries going into the tournament, and now they are for sure going to be out without Kevin McCullough for the rest of the tournament, as he's dealing with injuries. And then you have their second best player, Hunter Dickinson, the 7'2" big boy, is also dealing with injuries as well. So I feel like with having that pause, big boy, I feel like it's going to be tough for them. Samford is top 5 in the nation in scoring, so they're able to put points on the board. If you are coming into a situation where you are without your highest scoring player who's averaging 20 points per game, and your next big who is also dealing with injury who's averaging 19 points per game, is going to be tough. So if Samford's able to score efficiently and get points on the board, and eventually palms get sweaty. Kansas, I feel like, is still a favorite. They're a 7.5-point favorite, but Samford and a lot of these 13, 14, 15, 16 seeds have literally nothing to lose. They're playing with house money. They have a lot of confidence. They've only lost 5 games all season, albeit they have not played great teams. Their one top 25 matchup was a loss. But again, I think with Kansas's injuries and with Samford's ability to score, that it could potentially be a good game. We could potentially see an upset. I don't have that. I'm just saying that would probably be one that, for a high-ranking team, was probably one that I'm the least confident about.
Yeah, I would also agree with that. I don't think that I think that Kansas will be able to take care of them. I think it's just a step up in class, and I think that they're good enough to win without McCullough and without your big boy.
Dickinson should
but
play. He should play.
yeah,
He's just kind of
yeah,
hampered.
yeah. So I mean, and like a 50% version of them is still better than like most of the nation. So and it sure as hell is going to be better than Sanford as well too. My thing is going forward outside of after that matchup, Kansas is going to run into a problem without McCullough because according to ESPN and his on-off stats, this is his net rating when he's on the court is 14.1. When he's off the court, it's negative 3.6. His true shooting percentage when he's on the court for the team is 58%. When he's off the court, 55%. Effective field goal percentage, 54%. Off the court, 51%. And three-point shooting percentage is 36% when he's on and 29% when he's off. So obviously, as you can tell, scoring is going to be quite difficult without your best player there. And you see what kind of an impact he has on the offensive end for that team. So,
fair enough. What would your second pick be, if you have one?
So I honestly got a few. I'm only gonna break down a couple of them though. We'll be here all day. So one of them that I had was Oregon, and that one is more so due to just like trends as opposed to like actual stats and stuff. I mean, the stats would also probably back it up if I checked that out, but I didn't check it out because I was like, I mean, it's an easy pick there. So Dana Altman, 15-5-1 ATS in his tournament, in the past tournaments, and he's also never been eliminated in the first round. Additionally, I just happened to randomly find this. I also just happened to randomly find this stat on the luck factor on KenPom, and so I was going through it, and I was trying to decide on like what does this even mean or whatever, and it's basically just like the difference between what was expected to happen and what actually happened and what the deviation from that is. And so going back, I checked all the way back to 2018 just because I have a life and don't want to go back too far. But going back to 2018, skipping 2020 because obviously there was no season, no tournament. Out of 45 qualified teams over the past 6 years, only 3 teams have made it past the second round if they're ranked inside the top 30 when it comes to luck on KenPom. And those 3 teams were the 2018 Kansas, and then the 2018 Loyola, as well as Miami in 2023, and all 3 of them made it to the Final Four, whereas the 2022 Miami team made it to the Elite 8. So those are the, I know I said 3 teams, but I also ended up finding the 4th team there later on. And then also, if you adjust for like the rating for it to be, one of the numbers that's set most often around like the 30-ish range is 0.081. So if you go 0.081 or lower, then that only leaves the 2 Miami teams in 2022 and 2023. And then this trend has also eliminated the likes of the 2018 Xavier team, the 2019 Kansas team. By the way, Xavier was the number 1 team in that league, or number 1 team that year, and then Kansas was the number 4 team in 2019. The number 7 Clemson team in 2021, the number 3 Wisconsin team in 2022, the number 6 team Colorado State team in 2022 as well. Number 7 in 2023. And then, as we know, Kansas, #1 team last year, getting bounced. So, again, trends will be the rent, but they sure do tell a damn good story. And if this is all correct, which I know it is because I did it myself, then that means that teams such as Stenson, Grambling State, Sanford, UAB, Virginia, Utah State, and Oakland, as well as South Carolina, are all qualified for this trend to be true. So put all that together. Oregon moving on. Dana Altman keeping his streak alive, and South Carolina getting bounced. So
I like that pick. I actually have that same pick, so I ain't gonna
that's gross.
argue too
I'm
much.
changing it.
My next one, my next one, we already talked about it before before we started the show. NC State going over Texas Tech. My boy, you already know Brian Burns, baby Zebo. They've been on a heater lately. They started the season 12-2, then they went through a very hard slump midway through the season and basically got close to around 500. And then they just went on an absolute heater to close the season. And then they went in the ACC tournament and they're like, you know what? Let me just beat all of these elite teams. So they beat the Duke, they beat UNC, the other teams that they beat were solid. They beat Syracuse and Virginia, and they become the ACC champs. They're now the 11th seed going against Texas Tech, who's the 6th seed. And I think Texas Tech, both of them are very similar in their offensive game, but the Texas Tech has problem against the boards and has problem against bigs. And last time I checked, DJ Burns kind of fits that build. So I think that they go into the tournament with this confidence and having the ability and knowing that they can beat these elite teams. And I don't think that Texas Tech is better than UNC or Duke, who were fully healthy. And like you mentioned multiple times, you're like, well, they were tired and stuff. All the other teams played the same amount of type of games as well. So I got DJ Burns and NC State moving on against Texas Tech.
Gross. It's gross, honestly.
No, it's not.
I mean,
It's not.
Again, like they were out of the tournament. Like they weren't even supposed to be here. The only reason why they're in the tournament is because they won all of those games. Albeit,
yeah, and who beat who?
Yeah, they're great wins. That's great. That's cute. That's awesome. Good for them. But also, like getting into the tournament is one thing. Winning and having multiple wins throughout the season and in the tournament is another thing. And I think that Texas Tech is one of those teams that, they have that experience to where, they're in the tournament just about every year. And, in terms of like the age wise, yeah, sure, NC State has that as well too. They have some old folks over there, maybe going to the old folks home pretty soon. But at the same time, I do think that the overall talent of Texas Tech is going to prevail. In terms of offensive and defensive efficiency numbers, NC State is 47, whereas that's on offense, whereas they are 91st on defense, which puts them, if I do remember correctly, which puts them on the outside looking in terms of that trend that we had where, you had one team, or my goodness, you have a one-dimensional team where, you have an adjusted offensive rating below 115 and adjusted defensive rating above 90. 91 is right outside of it. So that qualifies them to have an 85% chance of getting bounced in the first weekend, as well as them having one rating outside of the top 75, whereas Texas Tech, solid on both ends, where they have a 54. My God, I think I'm having a stroke again. This happened a couple times ago, but anyways, whereas Texas Tech has a balanced offense and defense, where they're 48th on defense, and they're 23rd on offense. So, and along with that, teams that are in the top 75 on both offense and defense tend to make the Sweet 16 or have a higher likelihood of making the Sweet 16. Obviously, not everybody can make it, and there's like a laundry list of teams that qualify for that. But again, trends will pay the rent, but they sure do tell a damn good story. And that is a damn good story that I'm going to listen to and follow, especially because, like I said before, NC State is tired. They are coming off of basically, they won the Super Bowl. They weren't supposed to be there. They celebrated till the cows went home. I don't think they're tired.
Now we're here.
Again, can I say that they're tired?
back
they're
against the
tired
wall,
out.
going into the ACC tournament, basically on the outside looking in and continuing to beat these top 10 teams within the nation. I mean,
Mhm.
I don't know which one.
Okay,
They are also my Cinderella
also,
team, low key. I'm just gonna say
that's
that.
cute.
So
That's
if you,
cute. That's cute.
it's
But
beautiful, actually.
look at this though. What are they going to do on defense? What are they going to do on defense?
Don't worry
So
about
they're
that.
91st.
Don't worry about
Exactly. They're 91st
that.
in
Phoenix
terms of
Suns.
offense or defensive, in terms of defensive rating, right? 91st. But then when it comes to 3-point percentage that they allow, they're 246th, Alex. Is that good?
Yeah, it's good enough to win the ACC tournament.
Okay, yeah. Whereas on the offensive end, Texas Tech is 37th in the league, or in all college basketball in terms of 3-point shooting percentage. So you're gonna give me somebody that's shooting that's 37th in the league, going up against a team that is 246th in the league. And mind you, Texas Tech, what's their bread and butter? 3-point shooting attempt or 3-point field goal attempts. They're 81st in the league, which may not sound like a lot, but there's 366 teams in all of college basketball, and if you're 81st, that's in the upper echelon of that, meaning that you shoot a metric blank ton of threes throughout the game. Whereas NC State, they give up a field goal percentage of 35.4, which is 103 in the nation. So all that to say that Texas Tech, I don't want to say they're gonna roll, but I do think that they might make it look easy out there, just having a bunch of wide open shots. And I
Let's
think
bet
that
on it
also,
then.
and all right, let's bet on it. Yeah, sure, man, whatever
Yeah,
you want.
I want the
Know what
spread. I want
is.
my points.
I don't even know what the spread is. Let me check.
All right. No. You already all this confidence and stuff like that.
I mean,
Just
I
give
don't
me
even
the
care about
blind
the spread.
spread. Okay, fine.
It's the spread could be like 15. I'll take it. No, but
I'll take 15.
nah. We ain't gonna do that. Anyways, it's sounding crazy. But let's see. Let me pull this up. College basketball. And so you're saying that that's your
4.5. Well, that's what I'm saying. It's kind of like it's a yes and no, because I do think they're going to win this round, but I don't think that winning one round makes you a Cinderella story. But I can't, consciously put them over Kentucky, who they would play in the next round.
Why,
so
Alex?
that is the problem.
They be on these teams.
Huh? Oh, just personal reasons. Seth, you do know who one of those number one teams is going into this tournament, though? And in my, love in North Carolina, who is the number one seed, they already took care of them convincingly. Albeit like convincingly, I would understand if they were all these basically buzzer beaters and all that kind of stuff. They won the ACC tournament convincingly.
Yeah, I mean, whatever. Anyways, it's a 5.5.
Okay.
Nope, 5 point spread. So,
all right, I'll take the 5.
You bet. Heard it here first.
Moving on.
Easiest
So
bet I made all day.
That is my last upset alert, and that was basically my Cinderella team. So if you have some upset alert Cinderella teams that you want to get into as well, go ahead.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know if you count like a 7-10 kind of an upset.
I don't.
Okay, fair enough. Well, moving on then. So my other one would be
most likely upsets throughout the tournament history.
Yeah. I mean, so we have New Mexico against Clemson. Again, you could probably say that they're also probably tired, but at the same time, after starting, this is for Clemson. After starting 11-0, they finished the season 12-11, and they lost the first round of the conference tournament to the 74th ranked Boston College. And they didn't just lose in overtime. They didn't lose by 1 or 2. They lost by 21. They got skunked. So I think that this team's coming in, down on the whole season because they started out super hot. And then after that, they just kind of ebbed and flowed throughout the season. And then they ended the conference play on a just atrocious note. Sure, maybe it's a buy low spot for them, but I don't think it's much of a buy low spot. I think it's just a buy them because they're dead kind of thing. And I think that New Mexico coming in they're hot, and they've won 15 of oh my god, they are 15-8 in the same period, and they've also beaten teams like the number 37 overall Boise State, number 30 Colorado State, and number 20 San Diego State University. So that was also on back to back to back days. So again, I think that, sure, maybe they're tired just like NC State, but also they've actually beat quality caliber teams where they've done this throughout the whole season, not just actually, let's just decide, at the end of the season, we're going to be good now. No, New Mexico State, New Mexico has been good the whole season, as opposed to
If you
just kind of
tell
picking up
me
play towards.
If you tell me, oh, okay, you can beat 3 top 10 teams, how would you want to do it? Would you want to do it when you're getting hot towards the end of the season and everybody can be, in the right headspace, whatever, or would you like to, methodically beat them throughout the entirety of the season? Because Clemson's beaten these good teams too throughout the entirety of the season. They've beaten Alabama, they've beaten North Carolina, but I mean, when NC State does it in 1 week, and then you put them in a similar bracket where everybody's playing back to back, just like you are in the NC tournament. But contradiction.
Look. So this was also happening. This was going on here. So you also have the fact that New Mexico is actually a good team. So we're forgetting this, right? Because we talked about NC State. We talked about what their flaws were on offense and on defense, quite frankly, mostly on defense. Whereas New Mexico, they're 42nd in terms of offensive rating, and they're 22nd in terms of defensive rating. Last time I checked, NC State was like, I don't know, like 47th and 91st. Yeah, like that's not good, Bob. There's a little bit of a difference between, having the 22nd ranked defense and having the 91st ranked defense. Sure, maybe the offenses are comparable, but at the same time, I'm going to rely on the team that's been doing it the whole season as opposed to the team that's, all of a sudden just found lightning in the bottle. Because sure, that makes for a great Cinderella story. But at the same time, the ball's going to drop. The pumpkin is going to turn back into, or it's going to turn back. I messed it up. God, forgive me. Forget it. It's over. The carriage is going to turn back into a pumpkin.
All right.
Whatever.
Fair enough. Moving on.
I was going to say, moral of the story is that New Mexico is going to get the upset, and NC State is not going to get that upset here.
Do you have more, or would you like to just go and continue on to the Final Four and championship?
Yeah, real quick, I'll just mention that I had Drake as my Cinderella story, making it pretty deep there. And first and foremost, they're taking on Wazoo, and Wazoo, sure, they've had some pretty good wins against Arizona.
Wazoo.
But also, they've had some pretty bad losses in terms of losing to the 60th ranked UW team, and then also the 127th ASU team, 122nd Cal team, 55th Oregon team, which they're in the tournament at least, 50th Utah team, 108th Santa Clara team, and then 31st Mississippi State team. That was beginning of the year. So there's some pretty bad losses, and these games weren't exactly close either. Whereas Drake, in this matchup specifically, it's basically a home game for them because it's going to be in Omaha, which, I mean, they're, in Des Moines. So 137 miles, I had to Google this. I was like, they're 137 miles away, hour 59 minute drive. So that's doable. I'd go see my team for that. And then in terms of the non-conference that Wazoo played, it was ranked 316th in the nation. So the competition that they were playing outside of the Pac-12 was just piss poor. Whereas Drake,
but you don't know no better.
I mean, well, okay, fair enough. But at the same time, Drake, not much better, but 243rd in the league, which again is better than 316th. So I'm gonna go with Drake to make a deep run in the tournament. I have them going. Where do I have them going here? I have them going all the way to the Elite Eight.
There you go. What is that Final Four looking like?
So the Final Four, I was gonna get a little crazy. I did get a little crazy, but not as crazy as I was going to
Oh,
get. So I got Auburn, I got North Carolina, and I got Houston, and I got Creighton. So
who do you got knocking off UConn? Auburn in the Sweet 16?
yep, absolutely.
Interesting.
So I mean, we talked about this a little bit before we came on here. Talking about how number one seeds or overall number one teams usually don't fare that well going into the tournament, and so I mean it's hard to win back to back years, and I can't have UConn winning again because that's just like the most chalky play ever. So if you're gonna win a bracket, you gotta zig where people zag. I mean, so I think that no pun intended with Gonzaga moving on to my Elite Eight either. But beside the point, I think that Auburn, they play a very up tempo kind of game, and the combination of their guards, and I forgot who their big man is, but that dude's literally been in college for like I don't know 10 years. Um, I think that going forward, I think that that experience is going to be the most beneficial thing for this Auburn team. Uh, and I granted it's a Bruce Pearl team, but I think that Auburn can make a deep run and potentially make it to the championship.
I think that if Auburn is able to beat UConn, then I could agree with you and see them in the Final Four. I just personally don't think that they're going to be able to beat UConn, which is why I have UConn as in my Final Four. I have North Carolina out of a homer pick because even though I didn't pick them as my champion this year, unlike every single season or every single year over these past like 10 years, I do still think that they are a good team. I do still think that they do have experience with Baycott. I have Houston, and then I also have Creighton in my Final Four as well.
Yeah,
I wanted
change
to
your
put
mind.
Purdue in there. I wanted to put Purdue in there because I'm just like, y'all, you guys can't do this every year. It can't be that bad. Zach Edey, you got to step up
Same.
eventually, and you can be this elite player of the year and everything like that. But as soon as you get into the tournament, teams are able to kind of slow you guys down. Then you guys kind of get upset, and you don't know what you guys literally don't know what to do. Acts like you guys forget how to play basketball when you guys are behind. But I have them in my Elite Eight, but I do have Creighton pulling off the upset to take on Houston. And then we can continue on from there. I have Houston and UConn as my champion in a championship game, and I have UConn in a back-to-back no OVO.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's so there's a couple other things too here that are in play.
I still may change my
When it
picks
comes,
in the next 24 hours. I'm just saying.
okay.
I reserve the
um,
right.
no, absolutely not. So when it comes to picking the teams that make the Final Four, this is per Ken Palm's ratings and everything, and this is like a fluid rating, so it can change on which teams qualify throughout the tournament because they update uh, the ratings and stats and everything throughout. That being said, so teams that make the Final Four typically have a top 25 adjusted offense and top 25 adjusted defense. Those teams that qualify: Arizona, UConn, Purdue, Auburn, Creighton, Marquette, North Carolina, and Houston. And then in terms of teams that win the championship, they must have a top 20 adjusted offense and defense. And teams that qualify: Arizona, UConn, Auburn, Houston. So, and then there's this other one too that's a little bit more complicated to follow, but I'll try and do my best to make it quick. So
Yeah.
this is courtesy of Veasan on the Sharp Money podcast, and or not Sharp Money podcast, on the Numbers Game podcast. Gil Alexander, shout out to him. Anyways, so it's the last 33 champs have also had more assists than turnovers. 31 of the last 33 champs have had a head coach with Sweet 16 experience, except for the 2014 UConn team that had Shabazz Napier. And then also last year's UConn team with Grant Hurley. And then you have 27 of 28 teams went to the tournament with at least 3 wins versus teams in the top 10, in the top 10% of RPI. Only
NC
exception,
State.
again, okay, so, and then again, the only exception is 2014 UConn team with Shabazz Napier. And then the last 28 champs have also had a top 75 strength of schedule. And then 20 out of the last 21 champs were in the top 20 in adjusted offense per Ken Palm, and also top 20 in adjusted defense per Ken Palm. Again, the only exceptions, 2014 UConn team, which got Napier, they were 39th in adjusted offense. And then you have the 2021 Baylor Bears, who were 22nd in adjusted defense. So, all of that being said, teams that qualify are going to be the Houston Cougars, the UConn's team, again, there might be another exception, and then Arizona and Auburn. So, Houston, UConn, Arizona, Auburn qualify for that, as well as the championship, which is top 20 offense, top 20 defense. So, it's got to be one of those 4 teams.
And you have...
And I'm going with Houston. I think I'm going with Houston, the Cougars over Houston over Auburn, in a barn burner. It's probably going to be a super low scoring game because Houston doesn't know how to do anything else. And I just think that, you know me, Alex. You know I do this every year. And I just think, they're coming in where they have low expectations because they just got their doors blown off by Iowa State. And as we know, you want to fade teams
They'll
that
come
have
in
just
as the
won.
number 1 seed.
Well, not the overall number 1 seed. That is UConn. That is number 1 overall seed. And we like to fade those teams. But then also, hold on. We also have the fact that they didn't win the conference championship, which is a good spot for teams to be backed because you want to fade those teams that win conference championships. Ergo, NC State, and ergo, UConn. Granted, UConn is a juggernaut, and I think it's either going to be between Auburn or UConn that goes to the championship there, but I'm taking a chance of taking Auburn that makes it. So that is my case for Auburn and Houston in the championship, and Houston is going to win it all.
I love North Carolina because I always wanted to go there, Michael Jordan, all this kind of stuff like that. So I just have a homer pick with North Carolina. I have no idea what Drew's affiliation with Houston. They may be having this man with some under the table stipend or NIL deal or something like that going on. For what? I don't know, because I don't know what you're going for them. But like, I could understand if USC isn't good and you talked about them trying to squeak into no. But I have no idea what your obsession is with Houston. And all they do is hurt you every single year, Drew. North Carolina's won me championships. They've won me NCAA tournaments and brackets and monies and all that kind of stuff. What has Houston done for you, Mr. Moore, besides disappointment?
I mean, they've always been a
They're
solid
just like Purdue,
team,
except they can make the championship, but
yeah, on paper, they always have a solid team. And I respect a team that locks down on defense, and they have small guards. It's a homer pick in a sense because most of their guards are like sub 6 foot. And that's just a great thing. Seeing those guys out there get buckets, step back, up, in and out, pause, bucket. You know what I mean? So I just think that granted, there will be a scoring drought. They will go 5, 10, 15 minutes without scoring, but they will make sure that the other team doesn't score either. So I think that at times their games can be a rock fight, but ultimately sometimes you got to win it dirty. And I think Houston is a great team that has a great coach, Sweet 16 experience, Final Four experience, and arguably should have had a couple more championships over the past few years, but they're kind of like the present.
Fair enough. So hypothetically speaking, you have Auburn upsetting UConn. If UConn does beat Auburn and continues on, would you then change your pick, or would you still have Houston if it were to be UConn and Houston in the championship?
Still Houston.
Okay. Fair enough. I mean, I think they're the elite defensive team in the tournament.
I was going to say, granted, like the guard matchups kind of scare me against UConn because their guards aren't just like guards, like they're big, you know what I mean? Like so that is concerning for sure. But I mean, once it's locked in, it's locked in. So yeah.
Fair enough. I think that they're an elite defense, but I think that they are going to run into some very high offensive power juggernaut teams in this tournament as soon as you get to the Elite Eight. And if some teams eventually are able to score on them. They do, like you said, they have trouble scoring sometimes. But I mean, fair enough. I mean, I have them in my championship, so it's not like I'm super opposed to the pick.
Mm-hmm.
Fair enough.
Absolutely.
Well, we can move on to the women's NCAA. For this one, we are going to name our final four teams, unless you do have a Cinderella story that you want to get into. We can name our final four teams and our champions for that as well. So, would you want to go first?
Um, I mean, the only real thing I wanted to mention as like a maybe a little bit of a Cinderella story, but not really. Typically in the women's side of the bracket, they don't have too many double-digit seeds that go too far. However, I am looking at Tennessee to make a pretty good run this year. Um, because granted, they run into a problem where they have to go up against Stanford, but at the same time, I do think that Tennessee has shown that they can play with the big gals, and they should have honestly ended up winning the championship against, or should have ended up winning that game against South Carolina, but then they had a bank 3-point shot to lose the game. That ultimately, I do think that just the program as a whole has always been solid, as we know. But they're long, they're lengthy, they can shoot, and they can also um, guard 1 through 4. And I think that's the biggest thing, is not only having a team that can light up the world, but also having a team that is willing to play defense. Whereas teams like Iowa, they don't play a lick of defense. So like that's one of the reasons why I like Tennessee to go pretty far. But then they run into the big problem that is Stanford, and
I'm going to say you have them beating Stanford too.
No, yeah, no, that's where that's where their journey ends. But making it to what is that, the Sweet 16? So
Yeah.
I feel like that's a pretty solid run for them, especially because they had kind of what they would consider a down year, and I do think that they'll end up beating Green Bay, which has been an underrated team, who's also been pretty solid. That game might be actually kind of close, but then they also take on NC State, and I
Over
think that
NC
they'll
State as
beat the
well.
number. Yeah, you love NC State. Yeah, yeah, maybe you getting
Apparently,
some NIL
apparently.
deals or something. But yeah, I think that they're gonna get the job done, make it to Sweet 16. So
Fair enough. Fair enough. It's final four.
yeah, so the Final Four I have. So it was kind of tough on in Region Ones that has South Carolina and also Oregon State in there, but I ended up going with South Carolina because I mean, like
Mm-hmm.
yeah, they're yeah. um, but then also I have them going up against Stanford. Now, hold on here, because everybody get a
Mm-hmm.
little crazy in there.
Oh.
But so South Carolina matching up against Stanford there in that matchup, and then we have UCLA going against USC in a Pac-12 showdown. Um, and or yeah, wait, nope, I'm saying wrong things here. Nope, that's correct. Carry on. USC going against UCLA in
Interesting.
a Pac-12
Mm-hmm.
showdown. I think that USC, while they have been solid the whole season, I do think that I think that Juju is able to carry them, and sometimes that's what it takes, is just having that one player carry you all the way through. But it's not also it's not just Juju that's been shining in these games. The last game that they played against Stanford, they also had they call them the nerds, or the Ivy League gals, that they got from the music like Brown, Princeton, and like Harvard, Yale. And they got these gals where they get buckets. Ford, I believe it was last game, ended up dropping like 30. And I mean, if you just watch that game against Stanford, like she was just in rhythm, like stepping up, pulling up, looking like Kevin Durant out there in the finals against LeBron. It's just ridiculous. Like she was a bucket. So I think that having other alternatives when Juju is not able to get her shot up, or maybe she has an off night or whatever. I think that that's going to be important going forward, and having that depth as opposed to just relying on one player. Ergo Iowa. Um, I think that is going to be important going forward. And then UCLA, they've been solid all season, where where they thrive is on the defensive end, and I think that overall on the defensive end that'll end up carrying them through past Iowa and also past LSU, which is
That
it's
was
pretty
surprising to me. You have them beating both of them
yeah,
back to
it's
back.
a pretty tough bracket. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I think that, a really good game to kind of circle and highlight is going to be the rematch between Louisville and LSU. Um, you know, like you got players trading teams and everything, and then also the
Mm-hmm.
the rematch between well, what would have been the rematch if LSU um, uh, ends up playing against Iowa. If we get that matchup instead of UCLA, then I think that that'll be another rematch of last year's uh, championship as well.
Championship.
So yeah, that's my final four right now.
Yeah.
What do you got?
I have LSU beating UCLA the Sweet 16, so I do have the matchup of Iowa and LSU in the Elite Eight. Mine is chalky. I do have it's the number ones. I have the number ones.
It's unbelievable.
I couldn't go against Juju and I couldn't go against Caitlin Clark. Um, so, and then South Carolina, I think it's a juggernaut. I do think that Texas is going to beat Stanford. So then in my final, I would have South Carolina versus Iowa, and I do have South Carolina winning that.
Fair enough. I mean, it's gross, but I mean, I also, Virginia Tech can be one of those things, can be one of those teams that can make a deep run, but also Virginia Tech can be one of those teams where they can be out in maybe the second round. I don't think they'll get out in the first round, but in the second round for sure, because they have Elizabeth Kentling, who's their star player, who's injured right now, and I believe she's like third in the league, or I would say the league, third in college, in
Yes,
scoring in the
sir.
WNBA or women's on women's side of it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
already going to the WNBA, but yeah,
Yep.
third in scoring. And if you don't have a gal that's third in scoring, I mean, good luck with the offense because if you've seen them play without it, it's looks like what Houston looks like sometimes, where it's just a rock fight. And I just think that when they get to playing against Baylor with their experience in the tournament, I think that that's going to ultimately prevail over them. But then also with the your Iowa and LSU matchup and stuff, I think that I do like LSU more in that matchup because last year when uh, when Iowa last year Iowa had Monica Sonato and then also McKenna Warnock, and both of them are gone. So not having those post players down low are going to leave
Mm-hmm.
Iowa
The
vulnerable
size, yeah.
to yeah to any kind of matchup against size, and you saw that against Ohio State whenever Cody McMahon whenever she was playing against them. Granted, um, you know they split the series, but also they got one of them, and the main way that they got it was because of Cody McMahon, and then also I forgot the other gal's name too, but she's more of like a stretch five though. So um, yeah, I think that's an interesting matchup you have there. But ultimately, what I end up having here is a matchup between UCLA and South Carolina, and I have UCLA, or sorry, I have South Carolina
I
cutting
was about to
down the
say,
nets.
like, oh, okay. That's
No, no,
I was
no,
like,
not
oh,
crazy,
okay.
not crazy.
A little
No,
blockbuster. Okay.
no. Like, I mean, they haven't won in what, like 2 years. Like, you know, it's hard to today as a team that hasn't won, and then also the way that they win, and they have so much depth, like 1 through 5, and
It's
then also
convincingly.
1 through 10. So I just think that it's going to be ultimately too much for UCLA to overcome. While the Bruins will have made a good run, I think that it'll all be for naught, and everybody's just playing for second place at this point. So yeah,
So you would have UCLA beating LSU, Iowa, and USC
yep,
back to back to back. Okay.
Yep.
If they do that, then I would be going into that championship game with all the confidence where I'm like, no, we winning this game. That would be like the ultimate way to close out the tournament. That
Yeah.
fair enough. Fair enough. Is there anything else that you wanted to get into today?
No, I believe that's everything.
There we go. There we go. Well, thank you for listening, everybody. This has been the College Shot Podcast with your host, Alex Harrison, Drew Moore. Make sure you are following us on Instagram and you check out our YouTube. Make sure you give us a like and comment, and you can hear us wherever you can hear with our tournament.
I lied. I got one more thing here.
For the girls,
I wanted to for the guys. I wanted to highlight this last trend here that I forgot to bring up. But the Mountain West Conference, we may think that they got snubbed having all these, super low seeds, even though they were able to get 6 teams in, which is borderline ridiculous. But
it's very impressive.
Yeah, which, when I tell you this, it's gonna blow your mind. So, in terms of Mountain West teams that are an 8 seed or worse, they are 3-32 straight up, and 5-28-2 since you're telling me that when you're an 8 seed or lower in the Mountain West, you are 3-32 straight up to 2003, and you're going to give them 6 teams that are in the tournament. Granted, they're all obviously 8 seed or lower. Well, yeah, exactly. And so that's where I was like conflicted with New Mexico, especially with them winning the tournament. And I was like, oh, yeah, well, we just see what happens here. But, at the same time, you have Nevada. And I also like Nevada because they're going against Dayton, and Dayton shouldn't even be the tournament either. And then you have Boise State as well. So, I mean, if Boise State ends up making it, that is. But so, you have all of these trends, all these stats. And again, all that to say, trends don't get the rent, but they sure do tell a damn good story. Also, one last side note, Utah State, 1-19 straight up in the last 20 appearances in the tournament. So, best of luck.
There we go. And also, for those of you that do follow us on Instagram, you can check that out to see our links if you want to join our March Madness bracket for the men or women. We both have brackets for each of those. So that would be pretty fun, an interactive thing for everybody as well. So,
and I'll put up a link to these stats and trends and everything, and then we can follow it throughout the tournament and see kind of what ends up coming to fruition, what didn't, so on and so forth. Kind of track it that way.
There we go. So if we filming next, I believe it would be sometime next week. So we would be into the Sweet 16, going into the Sweet 16. So yeah. Anything else you got, Drew?
That's everything. I plan on bringing home the championship, like I always do. And so, I mean, again, just like I feel like South Carolina in the women's bracket. Everybody else is just playing for second place, really. And so, please join, but just know that you're playing for second place. So,
I mean, they all have all your picks on record as well. So,
yeah, and you'll see. I'll be the first person to catch lightning in a bottle.
Okay, fair enough. We will see you all next week.
Peace.
Oh, Drew.